In this nugget, we're going to take a look at the idea of using sponsor portals to set up guest access. Let's begin. I've had the opportunity to teach at Cisco facilities many different times. And what I love about the experience is that it's very common that we'll go into the lobby, so I'll walk in, they'll have me sign in, and then in a few moments they'll call my name and then they'll give me a piece of paper. And on that paper, it's got my login information for access to their network, whether it's wireless or wired, along with the password and a statement of time as far as how long that password and username will work to get access through their network. And the title that they have for this person who's collecting and then handing out the credentials is called the Lobby Ambassador. And what's really cool is that it didn't take going to an IT person to create those credentials for me to use. The Lobby Ambassador, he or she could handle it all on their own. And one method of implementing that is to use guest access leveraging the Identity Services Engine. And here's the play-by-play on how it works. We're going to have several portals involved. We have an administrative portal, and that's where you and I would log on a normal basis to configure policy, look at reports, and so forth. And for you and I, the server, the ICE server that's providing that administrative function, would be the server that's acting as the administrative node if we have a distributed ICE deployment. However, we also can create and set up a portal specifically for the Lobby Ambassador. And that portal is called a sponsor portal. And the sponsor portal, that's going to be served up by the ICE server that's acting as the policy service node. And if you have a single ICE server, you really don't need to worry about that too much because all of the roles are going to be provided by the same ICE server. So let's imagine that IT Bob is our Lobby Ambassador. So he's sitting there in the reception area. People come in, they sign in, and then IT Bob uses the sponsor portal to create the temporary access codes for me and the other guests who come into that site. And then what IT Bob could do, he could go ahead and print that out and hand it to me, which is quite often the case. Because if I don't have network access at all, it's going to be really hard to check email. However, email is another option. So Bob could go ahead and email the credential information to my email account, presuming that I had access to get to my email. And another option is we could use texting or SMS to communicate that information to the guest who needs that temporary access. So in our case, let's say that IT Bob printed my temporary credentials. Let's say that this is my phone right here that I want to use to gain access to the network. So I would associate with the SSID. That information would very likely be on that printed report as well. The access point is being managed by a wireless LAN controller. And that wireless LAN controller is being used in conjunction with ICE. And at this point, it's simply going to be centralized web-based authentication. And we have a separate nugget on centralized web authentication that's titled Web-Based User Authentication that you can refer to go through the exact steps of setting up that centralized web authentication. And effectively, it means that whether I connect via a wireless connection or a wired connection, my traffic is going to be redirected over to the ICE server where it's going to prompt me for credentials. I'll supply the credentials I've been given as a guest. And then once I've authenticated, an authorization profile can be applied to give me the exact access that the company wants me to have. And the process for setting up an authorization profile is in our nugget called Authorization Profiles. So for the details on configuring the authorization profiles, I would refer you to that specific nugget. Now, one other aspect that's quite important is that we would want to give IT Bob specific training on exactly how to use his sponsor portal to go ahead and create these accounts for our guests. And one of the benefits of using a real person as the Lobby Ambassador who's acting as a sponsor is that that person can go ahead and verify the identity of the individual. For example, when I show up at the facility, they're going to ask for some identification. So I might provide my driver's license or some other reliable identification that the lobby ambassador, who's acting as the sponsor, can use to verify that I am really who I say I am. Now, in the event that we don't have an individual who can act as the lobby ambassador, we could also go ahead and do self-registration, or allow the user to do self-registration. So they would connect to our network. The guest would be prompted to enter their email address and possibly additional details about that person. And then the system would automatically generate for them a temporary user account that they could use for guest access to the network. And probably the biggest downside of doing self-registration is that there is not that individual there, the lobby ambassador, who's going to act as the sponsor, who can verify the identity of the person requesting the guest access. In this nugget, we've taken a look at the idea of setting up a sponsor, a lobby ambassador, giving them the power with a portal, the sponsor portal, to create guest accounts to provide credentials for guest access into our networks. I have had a great time in this nugget. I'm so glad you joined me for it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.